going to explain to you how we are going to set up the teeth and what guides we are going to use in positioning the teeth. So the first thing that I would like you to identify on the canine tooth is the cingulum. All right, so everybody should know where you find the cingulum. So what we are going to do is, when we're going to be positioning each posterior teeth, we're going to maintain a straight imaginary line that starts at the center of the canine's cingulum, and that imaginary line is going to end at this 2 millimeter distal line that we had drawn. So as much as this is an imaginary line, we are going to use our rulers to ensure that the maxillary posterior teeth's developmental grooves or central grooves are actually in line with this imaginary line that will start from the center of the canine's cingulum and end at the 2 millimeter distal line that we have drawn here at the back of the model. I think that I just forgot to mention or emphasize is the fact that when you are setting your teeth, you must not create any diastemas. So we all know that the canine is the turning point of the mouth, so it should actually then be obvious when you are setting your premolar that the curvature of the mouth has actually turned. To check that I've actually placed it in the correct way, I'm going to place my ruler and I'm going to look from above and place my ruler at the middle of the canine's cingulum, and I'm going to ensure that my ruler is in line with the 2 millimeter distal line at the back, and this ruler should run through the premolar's developmental groove. Okay, and that is the case. So I'm happy with where I have positioned my premolar. In addition to placing your premolar in this location, the first premolar lingual cusp must be off the occlusal table by 0.5 millimeter. So you get the buccal cusp sitting on the occlusal table, and then the lingual cusp must be off the occlusal table. So since I'm happy with my position, I'm going to try by all means not to move my premolar from this position, but then as I'll be tweaking the tooth to get the lingual cusp to be off the occlusal table, I will then again check if the positioning of my premolar is still in the desired position. So another thing that you need to be mindful of is the fact that when you are viewing your premolar from the buccal view, the premolar must not be slanted, but its long axis must be vertical. Since I've just tweaked the tooth a bit, I'm just going to double check if my position is still in the correct way. Okay, that's slightly moved, so I'm going to have to push my tooth a little bit in. Okay, that seems fine. You're going to have to do this a couple of times, the tweaking of the tooth. You tweak it until you get it right. There is absolutely no way that you are going to get this the first time around that you actually position your tooth. So you need to just be patient until you get it correct. So what I then like to do is view my tooth from the lingual side. Okay, it's actually not that clear to you, but then what I do is I use my instrument to lift up the lingual cusp from the occlusal plane. Okay. You're going to see that the buccal cusp is sitting flat on the occlusal plane table. Then if you look in, you're going to see that the lingual cusp is actually off the table. You can even see by the shadow of the cusp that it's actually off the occlusal plane table. So I'm happy with that. So I'm going to move on to my second premolar. With the second premolar, both the cusps need to be on the occlusal plane table. Again, when I will be positioning the second premolar, I will try and align it with the imaginary line that starts at the center of the canine's cingulum and ends at the 2 millimeter distal line at the back of the model. Right, again, I need to be mindful of the buccal view of my teeth. As you can see, this bulk of wax, I will need to melt it away because it is obstructing my view and I can't really see the length of the tooth. So I'm just going to melt it away. I also use my electron to remove the wax around the tooth so that I'll be able to actually see it properly. Okay, so I'm just going to check the position of my tooth. Okay, I just need to move my premolar a bit more in. Still need to move it a bit more in and twist it. Right. Okay, so I'm just going to double check the position of my teeth. That looks fine. So I'm happy. So now I'm going to position my first molar. Now this is where the curve of Spee starts to take form or take a visible form. So what is going to happen when I'm going to be placing my tooth is I'm going to try and achieve for the mesiolingual cusp to be on the table, or whilst all the other cusp will be off the table, and there is going to be a slight inclination of the cusp. So you're going to see this when I'm going to be placing the tooth. And so I'm placing my tooth again, trying to maintain that imaginary line. And what I want is I want for this cusp here to be on the occlusal table whilst all the other cusps are off the table. So let us see. Okay, currently can you see that both the mesiolingual as well as distal lingual cusp are on the table. So what I need to do is get the distal lingual cusp off the table. So So I'm just going to melt around the wax around the tooth so that I can facilitate some movement take place. Okay, so there we go. So I don't know if you're going to be able to see it. So there we go. Can you see? It's only my messiolingual cusp that is touching the table, while all the other cusp of the table, and there's like a slight inclination. Okay, so after I have achieved that, I need to just double check that my teeth are still positioned correctly. Let's just see. Okay, the cusp, the molar is slightly too lingual, so I'm just going to move it out slightly. That seems fine, so I'm just again going to double check to see if my position, the relationship of the cusp to the table is still maintained. So yeah, I'm going to move on to my last molar, and what I want to try and achieve is all the cusps must be off the occlusal table, but they must then follow that initial inclination from the first molar. Okay, no, that's too steep. So I'm also just going to remove that wax there because it is obscuring my view. No, right, still not looking right. Okay, almost there. Right, as much as all the cusps are off the table, they must still have the same positioning as that of the first molar. So when I'm looking at my second molar from the buccal view, I should be able to see the mesiolingual cusp projecting beyond the facial, or the buccal cusp. Okay, that seems about fine. So there I've created my curve of SPE, and as you can see, if I'm looking at my cusp from the buccal view, you can clearly tell that the mesiolingual cusp is showing, right, as much as it's off the table. But basically it has the same profile as the first molar. Right, so what I just need to do now is just double check my positioning out of the teeth. So the ruler must start at the center of the cingulum and end at my 2mm line. So that seems fine. So another thing that I just need to do before I move on is seal my teeth, otherwise they will all fall off. Alright, so another thing that you need to just be mindful of is when you are looking at your teeth from the facial view, it must be as if you are looking at doors that are in a corridor. So it mustn't be that we can see the last molar projecting out of the corridor. And so I'm happy with that. So as you can see, I've completed setting up the posterior teeth, but when I look at my anterior teeth, there's a bit of shrinkage. So before I move on, I just need to push down my teeth so that they actually sit correctly on the occlusal plane table. You're gonna have to keep on doing this because wax shrinks, but the one thing that you need to ensure at all times is that your incisal pin is still sitting on your your incisal table. Okay. Alright, just a reminder again that I want to position my premolar along the imaginary line that starts from the center of the canine's cingulum and will end at the 2 millimeter distal line that I have drawn. And remembering that I also want the lingual cusp to be off the table. So as I'm setting up, I can tell already that I'm gonna again have to remove some of that wax there, otherwise it's going to obstruct my view. It's very important that when you are setting up that you identify wax that will obstruct your view, because if you set up your teeth blind, you're gonna be setting up yourself for failure. So if you find that there's wax that is a bit bulky, you just need to remove it. Okay, so that's about fine. Okay. So now I can clearly see my premolar. Okay, the cusp of the premolar is actually off the table, so I don't really have to worry about it or worry about lifting it up. So now the only thing that I have to just double check is that the position of my tooth is actually still fine. So it looks perfect. Now I need to set my second premolar, remembering that the cusp of the premolar need to be on the occlusal table. Both of them need to be on the occlusal table. Okay, position seems fine. Just need to seal or add a bit more wax here at the back before I move on. Okay, so here's my curved spee this side. And what you also need to just ensure is that the steepness of your curved spee is exactly the same on either side. So you don't want a big difference between the inclination. So from what I'm seeing, this inclination is very mild compared to this one. So what I'm going to have to do is decrease the steepness of this tooth before moving on. That seems about fine now. Okay. Another thing that you need to just be mindful of is as you are setting up your posterior teeth, it should be that there is symmetry between the quadrants. So as you're looking at my quadrants, you're going to see that there is symmetry. If you find that you are setting up your teeth, and your posterior teeth, and you find that there is no symmetry, you need to then find the cause or the lack of symmetry. Okay, that seems a bit fine. Similar to this side. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to remove that wax and I will be done. Ensure that my tooth is sealed. Okay, just last double check of my positioning. Okay, great. Okay, so I'm happy. So now I'm going to try and even out the wax on my base plate. Will come back to my waxwork because before I first do it, I will have to just double check that all my teeth are still sitting correctly on the occlusal plane table. As I have mentioned before, it's the wax shrinks, and when the wax shrinks, it will contract with the teeth. So you just need to keep on double checking that your teeth are still sitting correctly on the occlusal plane table.